Reincarnated with the strongest system. Chapter 511, When the past no longer illuminates the future, the spirit walks in darkness. Part 1. 20,000 God points. 25. 30. William looked at the noisy surroundings as he sat in his VIP box inside the auction house of the gods. This was a place where the followers of the gods, as well as the gods, bid for items that caught their fancy. Naturally, there were restrictions placed on the gods that forbade them from bidding on any item that they saw. Since the currency used were god points, the gods were clearly at an advantage. In order to balance things out, a clear-cut rule was made, so that certain items could only be bought by their followers. The auction of the gods was separated by two schedules: the morning auction, and the evening auction. The morning auction as an exclusive auction for their followers. The evening auction, on the other hand, allowed both the gods and their followers to bid for the items that they wanted. Right now, William was seated on an expensive couch, with Lily's head resting on his lap, as he waited for his auctioned entry to make an appearance. Yes. This was also a place where the gods, and their chosen candidates, could mingle and see each other freely. Issei and David were also in the VIP room with William, and seated on special seats beside his couch. William lightly patted Lily's hair as he listened to the bidding war that was happening right now. If the disciples of the lowly goddess could see the adorable lowly right now, they would, without a doubt, raise a ruckus and conspire for William to get stabbed to death by kitchen knives. 60,000 God points. Going once. Going twice. Sold to bidder number 69. The beautiful auctioneer smiled as she lifted her small wooden mallet and hammered it on her desk, which signaled the end of the deal. Right now, William was a beggar. He had used up all of his God points in order to seal Sephiron for a few seconds. This had given the system ample time to send it to the auction house to be auctioned. After receiving the confirmation of his entry, the auction house gave him his own VIP room because the item that he had sent them for auction was a very hot commodity. Naturally, the gods who favored William wouldn't miss out on the fun and would participate in the war to buy the demigod of the Silver Moon continent, Sephiron, the Fire Phoenix. The atmosphere inside the auction house was very lively. There were times when William was tempted to bid for an item, however, he didn't have any god points with him right now. Although Issei, Lily, and David were with him, his skin wasn't thick enough to ask them for another loan. William still owed them 200,000 God points each, and he didn't want to abuse their kindness. The hours passed by as the bidding war heated up. William gulped because the highest amount of God points that he had managed to acquire was 1 million God points. But, he had used them all to merge the Undying Lands to his own domain. Right now, a dozen pills of awakening, that were personally made by the alchemist god, were being auctioned and the price had already reached 2 million. Pill of Awakening was a special pill that allowed mortals to unlock their latent potential that couldn't be brought out using normal means. This was a pill that the gods favored to possess in order to distribute to their loyal followers, to help them succeed in the worlds where they currently resided. Pills of Awakening sold to esteemed bidder number 007 for 5 million God points. It didn't take long for William to realize that when the auctioneer said the words esteemed bidder, it meant that the winner of the bid was a god. Several items had been bought by these esteemed bidders, and sometimes, their bidding wars would reach in the tens of millions. And now, we come to the highlight of tonight's event, the beautiful auctioneer announced. She then waved her hand and an image of a phoenix appeared in a projection. This mythical beast is of the demigod rank, the lady said with a smile. Bidding starts at 5 million God points with a minimum increment of 1 million. Lily, who was resting her head on William's lap, raised her head with a mischievous glint on her eyes. She had come to the auction because she wanted to buy the phoenix, Sephiron, in order to teach it a lesson that it would never forget. As soon as the host announced that the bidding was now open, Lily immediately raised her hand and made her bid known. 6 million God points. Lily shouted. 7 million. 8 million. 9 million. William wasn't able to stop himself from grinning ear to ear because he had never expected that a demigod could be sold for a high price. I should have also captured Drahum, William thought. The half-elf had no love for the ancient golem. However, for the sake of the Silver Moon continent, he didn't follow through with his plan. Now that Sephiron was out of the picture, and Enru had been turned into a dark Kylan using his powers, the guardians of the Silver Moon continent had lost a big chunk of their powers. If not for the fact that his mother and father were still in the Elven continent, William wouldn't have shown the guardians any mercy and captured all of them. Also, Skyla had told him that the demons were still eyeing the Silver Moon continent. The elves still needed the remaining guardians to safeguard their lands. Right now, only the Ent King, Myrender, was left to safeguard the Silver Moon continent, while they were away. Fortunately for the elves, the demons didn't know that Sephiron had been captured and that the other guardians were trapped in the southern continent. Of course, they knew about the movement of the elves, but no one knew that the portal that the elves had made was a one-way portal. It meant that although elven reinforcements could come to the southern continent, they couldn't go back even if they wanted to. 10 million. Lily bid valiantly in order to deter the other gods from fighting against her. However, her adorable voice was silenced when a crisp and clear voice spread across the auction house. 30 million. Lily, and the other gods turned their heads to the direction of the voice. Their eyes landed on an unassuming VIP room that floated in the distance. The blinds of the room blocked anyone from identifying who the bidder was. There were gods who liked to keep their identity anonymous when they came to the auction house. This allowed them to freely bid without being singled out by the other gods who wanted the same item. 30 million, the auctioneer repeated with a smile. Anyone else? A few sighs of frustration echoed inside the auction house, and Lily's sigh was one of them. We got a big spender, Lily bit her nails as she looked at the VIP room in the distance. I have a feeling that even if I bid higher, that person will still outbid me. William, who was seated beside the lowly goddess, patted her head. It's fine. You don't need to bid higher. The current price has already exceeded my expectations. This is already enough. Lily nodded her head as she leaned back on the couch and allowed William to spoil her. Going once. Going twice. Sold. The resounding clap of the gavel signaled the end of the auction. William glanced at the VIP room that had made a bid of 30 million for Sephiron, and bowed his head in gratitude. The auction house took a cut of 5% for every item that they had auctioned, leaving William with 28,500,000 god points. Big brother, you are now rich. Lily said with a smile as she hugged William. Issei and David also nodded their heads in agreement. They admired William for having the guts to send a demigod to the auction house of the gods. Ever since William succeeded in his first attempt to send Elander's beast companion, the silver dragon, Dioldrios, to the auction house, the half-elf had considered using it as a means to deal with his opponents. The only downside was that William also lost the pocket cubes that he had used to capture them. Right now, he only had 4 remaining pocket cubes with him. Out of those 4, one was already in use and held Xerxes, the hobgoblin arcane doctor. A/N, previously, Xerxes was only a hobgoblin with doctor. However, after receiving William's blessing, its rank rose and it successfully evolved to a hobgoblin arcane doctor. He had already asked Sancus, the god of contracts, if he could get replacements, but the latter denied his request. The god of contract told William that he had already given him the maximum amount that was allowed by the rules that bound them. Adding more would put him in a difficult spot and he didn't want to risk it. William felt that it was a shame because he wouldn't be able to use this tactic repeatedly. Although it was regrettable, William didn't regret auctioning Sephiron to the auction house of the gods. The elves had grown very arrogant as of late, and it was good to bring them down a peg. Without the protection of their demigod, and the loss of one of their guardians, they would need to think thrice before planning to wage war on anyone again. William knew that the elves would no longer act as wantonly as they had in the past. A demigod's deterrent was the real deal. Without it, the elves would have no choice but to strengthen their defenses in fear of another invasion from the demon race. Lily, is it possible for me to have a transaction with a god? William inquired. I plan to use my god points to free some people. Free some people? Lily tilted her head in confusion. A smile appeared on David's face because he had a hunch on what William was planning to do. Because of this, he placed his hand on the half-elf's shoulder as he confirmed his guess. Is it about Zhu and Shat? David asked. William nodded his head in confirmation. Issei, who was standing by the side, crossed his arms over his chest as he thought of a plan inside his head. How about you let me handle this, Issei proposed. I'm good friends with the Jade Emperor. I'll put in a good word for you and try to secure a meeting today. Thank you, brother Issei. This is but a small matter. Leave it to me. William thought of the two demons that had helped him during his fight against the Celestial Army. He was indebted to the both of them, and the red-headed wanted to repay them in full for the debt he owed them. This is the only thing I can do for the two of you, William thought. May both of you find happiness in your next life. William's wish was for Zhu and Sha to enter the cycle of reincarnation. He knew that this was the only way for the two of them to have a fresh start, and William was more than willing to pay the price for their freedom. He just hoped that the Jade Emperor would listen to his request. He hoped that he would show mercy and compassion to the two retainers that were forever loyal to his cause. Chapter 512, When the Past No Longer Illuminates the Future, The Spirit Walks in Darkness Part 2. In the depths of hell, several warriors ran in an orderly fashion. These were the members of the Celestial Army that had failed to prevent William from entering the Heavenly Gate. The Jade Emperor was lenient with his punishment and only asked them to train in hell for 2 years before returning to their duties. Zhu and Shat, who had helped in William's endeavor, had also been thrown into hell as well as punishment for their actions. The Pig Demon and Sand Demon were enjoying a rare opportunity to drink wine together when one of the personal aides of the Jade Emperor appeared beside them. Zhu and Shat, the Jade Emperor has issued a decree, the aide said crisply. Zhu and Shat immediately knelt on the ground to listen to the decree that was given by the Lord that they had served for thousands of years. Starting today, the two of you are hereby given an official pardon, the aide announced. You are also given the chance to enter the cycle of reincarnation to start your new lives. The Jade Emperor also promised that after 1,000 years, he will once again give both of you a chance to serve under him after you have lived your lives to the fullest. Zhu and Sha glanced at each other in disbelief. They had already resigned themselves to stay in hell for eternity, and yet, a miracle had happened out of the blue. Sha, am I dreaming? Zhu asked. Instead of answering, Sha slapped Zhu hard on the face. The pig demon howled in pain as he caressed the side of its swollen face. Oink! I just asked you if I was dreaming. Why did you slap me? Did it hurt? Day. Of course it hurt. Oink! Then it's not a dream. Sha chuckled. It's not a dream. We're free. The Jade Emperor has forgiven us. The Sand Demon laughed wholeheartedly as tears streamed down the side of his face. A moment later, Zhu joined his friend as they both laughed and cried at the same time. The aide looked at the two with a smile. Secretly, he was there when the two demonic beasts helped William fight against the Celestial Army, and even envied them a bit because they had fought for what they believed in even though the odds were stacked against them. A few minutes later, the two had calmed down and shifted their attention to the aide that was waiting patiently at the side. So, are the two of you ready to reincarnate? The aide asked. Zhu and Sha glanced at each other before giving their answer. Is it possible to see the Jade Emperor once? Sha asked. Zhu stared at the aide in bated breath as he waited for the man's answer. The Jade Emperor had given me 2 orders, the aide answered. The first one is to accompany the two of you to the cycle of reincarnation. The second one is to accompany both of you to meet with him in the Jade Palace if you wish to seek an audience. The aide then waved his hand and a majestic chariot descended from the sky. Come, the aide made a gesture. The Jade Emperor is waiting for both of you at the Jade Palace. William walked with steady steps as he left the Jade Palace. The first thing he did after getting his god points was to negotiate with the Jade Emperor for Zhu's and Sha's freedom. At first the Jade Emperor played hard to get, but in the end, he relented. However, the price for Zhu's and Sha's freedom was steep. 24 million god points. That was the price that the Jade Emperor had given William. He thought that the amount would make the boy back down, but to the Jade Emperor's surprise, the latter agreed and didn't even bother to bargain with him. The Jade Emperor watched the red-headed boy from afar until William disappeared from sight. He recalled the conversation that the two of them had half an hour ago, and sighed. Perhaps this is fate, the Jade Emperor muttered. This is their karma. After William paid the Jade Emperor the amount for Zhu's and Sha's freedom, the ruler of the Jade Palace asked the half-elf why he was going this far for two criminals. William's answer made the Jade Emperor realize that the boy was someone who knew how to repay the debt he owed to other people. True friends will always find a way to help you, William answered. Fake friends will always find an excuse. Zhu and Sha had done me a favor that no amount of god points could ever repay. I have always wanted to set the two of them free, because I know that both of them were good people. William placed his closed fist over his chest and bowed at the Jade Emperor. Please, Your Majesty, give them their freedom. Allow them to reincarnate and shower them with your blessings. They have already atoned for their sins. It is time for them to return to the cycle of reincarnation. After hearing William's reply, the Jade Emperor immediately wrote a decree and gave it to his personal aide. He also ordered him to carry out his order at once. As soon as the Emperor's personal aide left, the red-headed boy also left the palace. There were still things that he needed to do in Hestia, and the aftermath of the war was still being dealt with. The elves that had surrendered were now stationed inside the city of Gladiolus. William had tasked them to help with the repairs of the city walls, as well as the buildings and houses that they had destroyed during the war. The majority of the Creator army had returned to the Anisha dynasty, with the exception of Empress Sidonie, Evexius, Prince Jason, the protectors of the Creator Empire, and 100,000 elite soldiers. The reason for their stay was to help William draft certain rules that would be implemented for the entire continent as they waited for the effects of the continental spell to end. Tacom had told William that it could end anywhere between 1 to 2 years, so it would still take some time before things returned to normal. For someone as lazy as William, dealing with this was a pain. However, he didn't have a choice because he was the nominated leader of the Helan Kingdom. He wasn't allowed to shirk his responsibilities this time. Somewhere in the Temple of the 10,000 Gods, Sephiron, the demigod of the Silver Moon continent, shrieked in fear and desperation, as an otherworldly beauty approached it with a smile. "Worry not, I will not hurt you," the celestial beauty said in a teasing tone. "How can I possibly hurt you? You still have a role to play." The lady reached out her hand to touch the struggling phoenix in the special cage that had sealed its fate. The moment the slender and delicate hand touched the phoenix's body, something incredible happened. The blazing red flames that covered its entire body had a sudden change. Beginning on the spot where the lady had touched it, black flames started to surge forth. Soon, this black flame spread across its body as Sephiron shrieked and struggled with all its might. "Struggling is, also, good," the lady chuckled. "I enjoy watching the last struggle of living things. Seeing the last embers of their life being dyed in black is a truly fascinating thing to see." Sephiron emitted one last desperate cry, before the black flames enveloped its entire body. 2 minutes later, the black phoenix spread its wings wide, and eyed the lady before it. It had been reborn, and its power had also increased after its transformation. It then bowed obediently to its new master and uttered a cry of servitude. "Do not worry," the lady stated while patting its head. "The time is not yet ripe. However, rest assured. You will be able to return to your world, and spread your wings far and wide." Yes, the time was not yet ripe. The goddess stared in the distance and the corner of her lips curled up into a smirk. She watched as a certain half-elf left the god domain to return to his world. The primordial goddess focused her attention on the temple and locked her sights on the goddess of lust. She stared at Lady Eros for a few seconds before shifting her attention to the goddess of female knights, Astrid. "Foolish girl," the primordial goddess said softly. "Play with fire and you will get burned. But, this is also good. You and your brother should make things difficult for him." The primordial goddess unconsciously licked her lips in anticipation. Just like a dish that was slowly being cooked and mixed with spices, she looked forward to the feast that she would partake in, when everything fell in place. When the past no longer illuminates the future, the spirit walks in darkness. The primordial goddess giggled. "Pendragon, I don't need you to light up my world. All I ask is for you to just sit with me, in the darkness." End of Volume 3, The Wrath of the Righteous. Chapter 513, The Beginning After the End. More than 2 years had passed since the battle against the elves in the southern continent. William thought that they had to wait 2 full years before the spell wore off, but it only took 15 months before the continental spell lost its power. On that day, many tears were shed. Not only in the Hellan kingdom, but in the 3 other kingdoms as well. For those that had turned into a statue, only a second had passed. To those that had survived, it was more than a year of suffering. Many children had died during that time. Their parents became heartbroken after finding out what happened, and wailed towards the heavens. If not for the guardians of the Silver Moon continent, the tens of thousands of elves that had survived the war might have lost their lives due to the anger of the citizens of the Zealand dynasty. Fortunately, the Minotaur race had intervened and allowed the elves to return to their ships and sail back to the Silver Moon continent. They didn't intervene because they wanted to protect the elves, they intervened because Drahum was on the verge of starting a massacre. The ancient golem was still a pseudo-demigod, and was more than capable to conduct a genocide. A month after the spell was lifted, monuments to honor the dead were installed in the Anisha and Zealand dynasties. The kingdom of Frisia had also done the same. Empress Sidonie had effectively dealt with the royal family and nobles of the Anisha dynasty by using her charm. After that, she stepped down from her position as empress, and delegated the throne to her little brother, Prince Karl, and made him the new emperor of the Anisha dynasty. Naturally, the transition wasn't smooth, because there were still people who opposed the new emperor. But, who was Empress Sidonie? She was the companion of the guardian beast of the Anisha dynasty. Not only that, the protectors of the Creator Empire ensured that there would be no further problems. They secretly disposed of those who dared to instigate a rebellion behind the scenes to reinforce Emperor Karl's rule. After losing the ringleaders, the opposition finally submitted and peace once again reigned in the kingdom. Meanwhile, somewhere in Midgard, sounds of kissing could be heard on a small island in the middle of the lake. A beautiful lady with light blue hair, and a handsome teenager with silver hair were currently in the middle of their love-making. Their clothes had long been abandoned at their sides, and a voice tinged with pleasure would escape the lips of the lady of the lake every now and then. "I love you, Ash," William said as he held his lover in a tight embrace. "I love you." Ash's body shuddered because at the same time the silver-haired young man had declared his love for her, the two of them became one. William's strong and lithe body pinned her down, but instead of rejecting him, she accepted him fully. The half-elf didn't rush things, and made sure to satisfy his lover by attacking her weak spots. This wasn't the first time that they had made love inside a dream, but every time they did, both of them enjoyed it to the fullest. William brought her to the peak countless times until Ash begged him to stop. "What kind of body do you have? You're so peerless," Ash said as she panted for breath. William chuckled as he planted a kiss on her cheek. "Don't worry. I am also peerless in the real world. Would you like to try me?" The mermaid snorted and rested her head on William's chest. They were still 2 months away from William's birthday, when he would finally come of age. Ash didn't want to admit it, but she was looking forward to having a union with William in the real world as well. "I feel a little guilty." Ash gently rubbed the gem embedded on William's chest. "I feel like I'm cheating." Don't be, William replied as he held her tighter. I'm sure that Wendy and EST will understand. William understood why Ash was feeling guilty. Wendy and EST had stayed behind in the southern continent because there were important things that they had to do. Also, their parents felt that going to the central continent was still too soon for them. Because of this, only Ash accompanied William to the Creator Empire. They traveled alongside the Creator warships thanks to the invitation of Princess Sidonie. The sensuous beauty knew that William needed to go to the Creator Empire, so she decided to use this to her advantage and invited him to travel with her to see her grandfather. On paper, he was Princess Sidonie's fiancé. The plan that the scheming beauty had made was foolproof, and William couldn't take the collar off her neck even if he wanted to. Why? It is because the princess threatened that if the half-elf took her collar off, the royal family of the Creator Empire would think badly of him. She also added that the possibility of William being banned from entering their territory was guaranteed if that were to happen. Princess Sidonie's other half, Morgana, also did her best to close the gap in William's heart. The half-elf had not resisted their advances, because he knew how serious Princess Sidonie and Morgana were. In the end, even Wendy, Ash, and EST relented. They accepted Princess Sidonie as one of William's lovers, which made the latter and her other half, Morgana, very happy. William also came clean and told Princess Sidonie that he would have 9 wives in the future. To his surprise, the princess only smiled and kissed him passionately. The scene where the princess and him had a heart-to-heart talk flashed inside his mind. I don't care how many wives you have, Princess Sidonie had said as she looked at William's eyes. The only thing that matters to me is your love. Do you promise to learn to love me? He had answered yes back then, and promised that he would learn to love her back. William had no plan to go back on his promise and spent a lot of time with Princess Sidonie in the Creator Empire. The only problem was Morgana. Sidonie's lustful half had made a vow that on the day that William had come of age, she would eat him up, even if his other lovers were present. If not for the fact that he was always on guard against her night raids inside his room, little William might have already been eaten whole. Will, these dreams, are they real? Ash asked. Did they really happen? William pondered the answer to this question seriously before giving his reply. I'm not sure. They are too much of a coincidence. I believe that this isn't just an ordinary dream. Ash, do you believe in past lives? As someone that had kept his memories after entering the cycle of reincarnation, William understood that past lives existed. If his recurring dreams with Wendy and Ash were true, then it meant that he had shared a past lifetime with the two of them. William was not the only one who thought this way. Wendy and Ash shared the same thought, and both girls were secretly happy about this possibility. Wendy even joked that they were still destined to become lovers even in their next lifetimes, and William shouldn't cheat on them, or else he would face divine retribution. We should probably go back soon, Ash said softly. Classes are about to start in a few hours. Okay, William replied as he naughtily groped Ash's chests, who was currently possessing the body of the Lady of the Lake. Ash looked at him with a reddened face, but didn't pry off the naughty hands that were having their way with her body. You still haven't had enough. Let's go for one more round. Fine. William and Ash opened their eyes at the same time. They were currently inside the villa that William had built on the beach area, that was supposed to be the boss room on the 10th floor. They always slept inside the dungeon because in this place, Ash would be able to return to her true form without any time limit. This allowed the two of them to spend intimate moments together, within the appropriate boundaries. The two of them showered and dressed together before leaving the dungeon. William's herd and legion were still busy clearing the floors of the dungeon. Right now, they were currently at the 50th floor, and their advance had been slow as of late. The 50th floor only allowed 6 individuals to challenge it at a time, which greatly limited their exploration. Even so, William wasn't in a hurry. He knew that challenging Atlantis was no easy feat. He was not delusional enough to think that he could capture the dungeon anytime soon. What he was waiting for was the person that his father had chosen to contact him as soon as he arrived at the central continent. This would allow William to capture any other dungeon, aside from Atlantis. Just as the name suggested, the Dungeon Conqueror prestige job class could conquer any dungeon. William was already looking forward to adding another legion in his ranks. The Minotaur race had already returned to their duty as the guardians of the Zealand dynasty. The Centaurs had also returned to their tribe. Only the Revenants, led by Urchitu and Bastion, remained. Of course, William still had the other monsters that he had tamed, like the malevolent nightmare Kelpie and elusive mist wildebeest. The other residents, like the black-winged panthers, had also given birth to a few individuals, and had already settled inside William's thousand-beast domain. Due to the vast supply of food and resources from both the Undying Lands and Atlantis, the creatures that had submitted to William wouldn't leave even if the half-elf asked them to leave. Although they needed to fight for the red-headed teenager during his time of need, they were completely fine with it. William held Ash's hand as he guided her out of the villa. "Let's go," William said with a smile. "I just hope that the Fifth Master hasn't destroyed anything in the Alchemist Pavilion. Last time, the treasurer almost cried a river of blood because the damages reached 500,000 gold coins." Ash giggled and nodded her head. Both of them were enrolled in the Silverlight Academy of the Creator Empire. This was one of Emperor Leonidas' conditions for allowing William to stay inside the Creator Empire. The Emperor didn't say anything about Wilalam's engagement to his granddaughter, which made the half-elf wonder if Leonidas favored him or not. However, the red-headed teenager wasn't too worried. What will come, William thought as he opened the portal that would take him and Ash back to the real world. Although there would be obstacles that might block his way, he was confident that he would be able to break all the walls that stood before him. After all, he was never alone. Chapter 514, William's first day at Silverwind Academy. "Good morning everyone, my name is William von Ainsworth," William introduced himself to his new classmates. "I hope to get along with everyone till this year is over." The girls in the class looked at William with curious gazes, while the guys looked at him as if he was their rival in love. "Greetings, my name is Ian D. Moxie," Ian said with a smile. "I am Sir William's retainer. I hope to get along with everyone as well." "Tisk, two good-looking transfer students. How are we supposed to get ourselves some beautiful girls if they are around?" "I know, right? They should have gone to the other classes, but why were they placed in Class A? Are they that good?" "HMP. I know the names of all the nobles in our empire, and I don't remember any noble household with the surname Ainsworth. He must be an upstart. Maybe he used some connections to get in." "That's possible. Just look at his face. Maybe he is one of the female professor's pets." The murmur grew louder and the homeroom professor of Class A cleared her throat, which made all the students shut their mouth and focus their attention on her. "Sir William, please take that seat at the far right on the back row, Rita Geiss," the homeroom professor of Class A said with a smile. "Since it's a three-seater, Sir Moxie can also share the seat with you." William nodded and thanked Professor Rita. He then walked towards the back of the class and sat in the seat that was assigned to them. Ian sat beside him and acted as a proper retainer to a noble heir. She had been trained since young to become ESD's retainer, so it wasn't hard for her to play her part perfectly. Just like William, several of the nobles also had their retainers inside the classroom. Some of them stood outside the room, while those of similar age to their masters stood in the back corners of the room as they watched over their masters. "Will you look at that?" a teenage boy wearing glasses smirked. An upstart and his retainer are seated side by side. Don't they even know the etiquette of nobles? That is why he is an upstart, a chubby boy chuckled. Seriously, he doesn't even understand the hierarchy of subordinates and their master. Ian frowned. She didn't want to stand out, so she decided to go with the flow and stand in the corner of the room, where the other retainers were staying. A/N, from this moment onwards, I will refer to Ian as she. Don't get confused by the pronouns. Only I am allowed to get confused by it XD. However, before she could even stand from her seat, a hand held her waist, preventing her from standing up. Ian looked at William in askance, and the latter just shook his head. "You don't need to listen to these little pricks," William said. "Since I am your employer, you will only follow my orders. I order you to sit and attend class with me. Do you understand?" Ian smiled and nodded her head. "Yes, young master." Ian had forgotten that William could be adamant when it came to things that were important to him. This made her feel warm inside her chest, because her lover didn't want to treat her like a retainer, like the rest of the nobles in the Creator Empire did. Of course, although she thought this way, she also knew that the Creator Empire was different from the Hellan Kingdom. There were certain rules that they needed to follow in order to prevent themselves from getting ostracized by the nobles of the empire. The guys who heard William's words raised their eyebrows, while the girls looked at him with weird expressions on their faces. Although what William was doing wasn't uncommon, very few had the guts to call the noble heirs of the Creator Empire little pricks. "Wow, this plebeian is a feisty one," the chubby boy remarked as he looked at William with a mischievous smile. "This just proves that he's an upstart." The teenage boy shook his head in disdain. "Don't worry. He will soon understand the error of his ways." The boys inside the classroom exchanged glances and nodded their heads in agreement. They had singled William out and decided to teach the transfer student a lesson when the professors were not around. Professor Rita turned a blind eye on what was happening inside their classroom, because she was also looking forward to seeing how William would deal with his classmates. The Creator Empire encouraged rivalry and competition because they were a nation of warriors. The Emperor would watch over these promising students and pick the best among them to be trained and to serve in important posts when they graduated from Silverwind Academy. Just as Professor Rita was about to start class, the door of the classroom opened. "Sorry, I'm late, Professor," a beautiful lady, with long reddish-brown hair and hazel eyes, said with a smile. The newcomer then scanned the room until her eyes landed on the red-headed teenager that was looking outside the window. She was very tempted to go to his seat, but as a member of the royal family, she needed to show restraint. Everyone in the room sucked in deep breaths as they laid their eyes on the sensuous beauty in front of them. Men and women couldn't help themselves from staring at her face, which made them unable to take their eyes off of her. "My name is Sidonie Valfresia," Princess Sidonie introduced herself. "Starting today, I will be your classmate. I pray that all of you will take good care of me for the rest of the year." "Thank you. I think I'm in love. I call dibs on her." "In your dreams. Do you think you stand a chance with your pig face?" "Ha, this is the first time I've seen such beauty. Just where did this lady hide all these years? I need to ask my father to arrange a meeting with her family." It was not only the men that had been charmed by Sidonie's presence, even the girls were looking at her as if they had seen their idol. Princess Sidonie's smile made their faces redden, and some of the girls even wanted to stand up and call her my lady, even though they were nobles of the empire. "Princess Sidonie, it is an honor to finally meet you," Professor Rita bowed respectfully. "You may sit anywhere that you please. I'm sure that your classmates will do their best to help you in any way that they can." Princess. I knew it. Such a beauty couldn't be someone ordinary. The moment she stepped in, I already felt her royal bearing. This must be fate. The two of us were fated to be together. Didn't I tell you to stop daydreaming? Next time, please, buy a mirror. Perhaps that will wake you up from your delusion. The class became rowdy due to Princess Sidonie's appearance. William kept looking outside the window and didn't dare to look in her direction. Seeing that the half-elf was purposely ignoring her, the corner of Princess Sidonie's lips curled up into a smirk as she walked towards the back of the classroom. Ash was seated on William's left, so the princess mischievously sat on his right. However, it didn't end there. Princess Sidonie moved closer to William and gave him a kiss on the cheek, which made everyone freeze in place, including the half-elf that had just received Princess Sidonie's kiss. Moments later, Chaos erupted inside the classroom. Professor Rita had no choice but to step in and stop the ruckus because the noise might disturb the other classes. If that were to happen, it would reflect badly on her as a professor, and she didn't want that to happen. "Morgana, you are really making things difficult for me from the get-go," William whispered as he held the naughty girl's hand from under the desk. "Can you behave and not stir up trouble? Switch with Sydney for now." William had grown used to Princess Sydney's other half, who would always pounce on him whenever she managed to take control of the princess body. "I'll think about it if you kiss me," Morgana replied with a mischievous smile. "Later." "No. I want it now." William sighed as he gave the naughty girl a quick peck on the cheek before telling her to behave. Morgana knew that William had already compromised, so she decided to just rest her head on his shoulder before closing her eyes. If one were to look at her, they would only see happiness and contentment on her face. Ian, who was seated beside the two, rubbed her temple. She had already accepted Princess Sydney and Morgana as William's lover. However, she was still not used to Morgana's antics whenever she was around. Sometimes, even she was embarrassed by how bold and open Princess Sydney's other half acted. Part of her also admired Morgana because she didn't have the guts to do half of what she was capable of doing. "I guess Sydney will bury herself in a hole later," Ian sighed internally. "I almost feel sorry for her." Princess Sydney was currently sleeping inside her and Morgana's mindscape. She had been up all night dealing with important matters with the Anisha dynasty. A letter had arrived from her little brother, Carl, asking for advice on what to do with certain issues that had sprung up under his rule. The doting princess stayed up all night as she wrote proposals and solutions to the problems that her little brother was facing. These letters would be sent via courier to the southern continent, in order to help her brother solidify his rule as emperor. Before she slept, she repeatedly told Morgana to conduct herself properly as a princess of the royal family. Morgana promised that she would do her best, so the tired princess reluctantly relinquished control over her body and went to sleep. If only she knew that Morgana would create a scandal on the very first day of class, she would have attended even though she was dead tired. This was how William's first day started inside the most prestigious academy in the Creator Empire. Because of Morgana's little fiasco, William had not only become Class A's public enemy number 1, but the public enemy of the entire third-year division inside Silverwind Academy. This brought him unwarranted attention and scorn from all the influential nobles of the empire. A place where all the influential heirs gathered, and competed with each other in order to make their mark in the annals of history, and to gain the favor of Emperor Leonidas. An emperor who was given the title, the Emperor who stands above the clouds. Chapter 515, When in Rome, do as Romans do. "I want to bury myself in a hole," Princess Sydney muttered as she buried her head into William's chest. Ian sighed as she patted the depressed princess' shoulder. She felt sorry for the princess because her other half, Morgana, could sometimes do embarrassing things without thinking of the consequences. The three of them were currently inside a private room in the Academy's dining area that was reserved for the members of the royal family of the Creator Empire. The morning classes had just ended, and Princess Sydney had woken up from her slumber. When she asked William if Morgana behaved while she was sleeping, the half-elf lightly coughed before telling the princess what her Nogthai other half did. After hearing William's narrative, the princess' expression immediately became stiff. Princess Sydney then stood up, and walked away without a word. William and Ian became worried, so they followed her and ended up inside one of the private rooms where the members of the royal family dined during their stay at the academy. "Morgana, you should hold yourself back during the day," William admonished the naughty girl who was busy coaxing Princess Sydney inside their shared mindscape. "Sydney has an image to maintain because she is a member of the royal family." "Okay," Morgana replied as she temporarily took over Princess Sydney's body. "I won't do it again. I will only attack you when we are alone." Ian, who was listening from the side, shook her head helplessly. "I guess this is also fine. Sooner or later, the Emperor will announce Sydney's engagement to you. I mean, that collar on her neck is very striking, no? William glanced at the collar of wisteria that had accompanied him during his childhood. It was currently placed on Princess Sidonie's neck because the latter had succeeded in convincing him to place the collar on her. The half-elf knew that even if he went back in time, the result would still be the same. The princess was one of the 7 deadly sins. If she wasn't kept in check, there's a high possibility that Princess Sidonie could bring ruin to the world. In order to prevent that from happening, William agreed to her request to become her master. This way, William could stop her when she got carried away with using her charm on other people. William didn't want to admit it, but he had a feeling that if he had rejected her request that day, he would regret it for the rest of his life. Because of this, he had also opened up his heart to the princess, and her other half, Morgana. Their relationship had advanced steadily during the months that they worked together in order to prevent chaos from erupting in the southern continent. Since William had already come clean to his lovers that he intended to have 9 wives, they also accepted Princess Sidonie and Morgana as his lovers. To his surprise, it didn't take a long time before the 4 ladies got along really well. They even asked Princess Sidonie, and Morgana, to keep an eye on William, so that he wouldn't start flirting with the noble ladies in the Creator Empire. "Has the Emperor said anything?" William asked. Princess Sidonie, who had her head buried in William's chest, raised her head and shook her head. "No," Princess Sidonie replied. "He hasn't said anything, but I'm sure that he's currently pondering what his next move will be." "Will, be careful. I feel that grandfather is scheming something behind our backs." William nodded as he patted the princess's head. "Did he give me the permission to enter Ayamon's temple?" Ian, who was seated beside Princess Sidonie, looked at William in surprise. "What's to be surprised about?" William asked with a smile. "My main reason for coming here was to find a way to lift the curse on your bodies. The sooner I meet Ayamon, the sooner that you, EST, and Isaac, can return to your true bodies." Princess Sidonie had already been told about Asha's, EST's, and Isaac's circumstances. This was why she also did her best to negotiate with the Emperor to allow William to visit Ayamon's temple. The temple of the Grand Marquis of Hell was not open to the public. Only members of the royal family, and important leaders of the Creator Empire could enter its sacred grounds. Anyone who dared to go there without permission of the Emperor would face the wrath of the Creator Empire. If possible, William didn't want to form hostilities with Emperor Leonidas because they would be in-laws in the future, after he and Sidonie got married. Starting off on the wrong foot would just make the relationship strained in the long run. Grandfather said that he would consider it if you performed well after 3 months of being enrolled in the academy, Princess Sidonie replied. Also, he was very interested in your promised battle with Rebecca in the Misty sect that will be happening 7 months from now. He told me that if you lose, he will personally kick you out of the Empire, Princess Sidonie added. William sighed as he scratched his head. His battle with Rebecca had been pushed back due to the mess that happened in the southern continent. Upon careful consideration, the Misty sect decided to have their battle during the founding ceremony of their sect. This was a grand ceremony that happened every 3 years. The Misty sect would send invitations to the important people in the central continent. 12 kingdoms, 6 sects, 8 empires, 4 institutions, and 1 church. This was the distribution of power within the central continent. On the southern continent, there were only 4 powers that ruled the land. These were the Helan Kingdom, the Anisha dynasty, the Zealand dynasty, and the Kingdom of Frisia. These 4 held absolute power in the southern lands, but they were nothing compared to the forces in the central continent, which were rich in resources and manpower. They really made it a big deal, William thought as he remembered his ex-fiancée whom he hadn't seen for a long time. He wondered how strong Rebecca had become. Although he wasn't worried about the outcome of the match, he was very curious about if he could win against her if he didn't use his trump cards. "I guess I will cross that bridge when I get there," William mused as closed his eyes. "I wonder if Gramps and Sir Lawrence will be there as well." Knowing Gramps, he would not miss such an opportunity. Princess Sidonie and Ian exchanged a glance because William's mind had wandered away from them. They had a hunch about what he was thinking, so they didn't disturb him. From the get-go, Ian didn't like Rebecca. For her, Rebecca was too full of herself, and only used William as a shield to prevent other people from courting her. This was something that she couldn't accept. How could the man she loved be used as a tool for the so-called genius of the Hellan Kingdom, in order to ward off her suitors? Wendy had mixed feelings about William's battle with Rebecca because she considered the brown-haired lady a very close friend, akin to a sister. EST, on the other hand, didn't like or dislike Rebecca. For her, Rebecca was also a victim of an arranged marriage that had been planned by her elders when she was a baby. It was very common for the members of the royal family to have arranged marriages, so EST didn't think of this as a big issue. Her only concern was that William might try to lose on purpose in order to give face to his grandfather and Sir Lawrence. This was something that she didn't want to see because she believed that William shouldn't hold back, and put an end to their engagement properly. You said that Emperor Leonidas will consider my request depending on my performance over the next 3 months, William said as he looked at Princess Sidonie. What is going to happen in 3 months? A tournament for all the students of Silverwind Academy, Princess Sidonie replied. The winner will be personally awarded by the Emperor. According to tradition, the winner of the tournament may ask the Emperor to grant one wish. As long as this wish was within his capacity, the Emperor would grant it without fail. William had noticed the slight anxiousness in Princess Sidonie's expression as she explained the grand prize of the competition. It was then when a thought formed inside his mind. Don't worry, William said as she firmly held her hand. You are already my lover. I won't hand you to anyone. Princess Sidonie nodded her head and kissed William's cheek. She didn't mind being intimate with William as long as it was done in private. Princess Sidonie wasn't like Morgana, who acted without thinking of the consequences of her actions. With William's help, she was able to rein in the power of lust that was slowly awakening in her body. She would turn 18 a month from now, and the Emperor had already prepared a grand ball for her debut. This ball would be attended by all the elite heirs of the Empire, and a perfect opportunity to mingle with their peers, and of course, members of the royal family. William didn't have a good memory when it came to tournaments. When the inter-division battles were about to begin in the Hellan Royal Academy, the demons had attacked, quickly followed by the start of the war, which was followed by another war. If not for the fact that he needed permission from the Emperor to enter Ayamon's temple, he would have already snuck past its guards in order to have an audience with Lady Astrid's twin brother. When in Rome, do as the Romans do, William thought. I guess I have no choice but to participate in this tournament. This will also put Sidonie's mind at ease, just in case there is a fool who has decided to choose her as the reward for the tournament. Will? Princess Sidonie said as she cupped William's face. Yes. William replied with a smile. I love you. I love you, too. The two kissed passionately. After their kiss ended, William pulled Ash, who had already transformed into her mermaid form, closer. William kissed her as well. Me, too. Morgana complained after switching with Princess Sidonie. Don't show favoritism, darling. William chuckled as he softly pecked Morgana's lips 3 times, before giving her the kiss that she wanted. The two girls pressed their bodies on him as they savored this intimate moment. Inside the dining hall, where the students ate their lunch, a certain shepherd had his fill of hugs and kisses from 3 ladies, who loved him with all of their hearts. Chapter 516, Rainbow-Colored Calamity. 5th Master. MMM. 5th Master. MMM. A hot and sexy lady is currently waiting for you at Alchemy Hall. She said that she wants you to rock her world. MMM. A man with disheveled platinum blonde hair rose from the couch. Although he looked like a mess right now, his mesmerizing grey eyes, and his angelic features were enough to make any lady swoon the moment he smiled at them. This man's name was Albert Anstein, the Full Kettle Alchemist. William, Cancel all my appointments, Albert ordered as he rushed to his closet to pick an attire that would make even an old grandma blush like a teenage girl. Fifth Master, you don't have any appointments scheduled today, William said with a sigh. Albert started to apply some light powder on his face to give him that extra youthful glow. His original age was in the late 40s, but due to him being a half-elf, he had retained his good looks and overflowing charisma. After making the finishing touches, he turned to look at William. Tell me, apprentice, how do I look? Albert inquired. William crossed his arms over his chest as he appraised his new master from head to foot. You look awesome, Fifth Master, William replied. It's just a shame that I am still more handsome than you. Cheeky brat. Albert chuckled as he walked towards the door. Don't worry, I'll bring you to the red light district in 2 months. I'll show you how to pick up girls in a dungeon. William rolled his eyes as he shooed his master away. If he really went to the red light district to have some fun, his lovers would certainly beat him up, or worse, castrate him for his stupidity. Morgana even went out of her way to call dibs on him on the night of his birthday. Although he didn't promise her anything, he didn't reject her either. William knew that his master wouldn't be back until morning the next day, so he decided to clean up the room, so that it would look like it belonged to one of the most prestigious alchemists in the Creator Empire. Albert was the second half-elf that William had seen aside from Connor. Originally, William thought that half-elves were rare, because there were only 2 of them in the southern continent. However, in the central continent, half-elves could be seen everywhere. Although they weren't as common as the other races, they could still be found in almost every major city in the central continent. Today was Sunday, so there were no classes at the Silverwind Academy. Princess Sidonie had come to take Ian away after breakfast, and simply told William that both of them would go shopping. William didn't mind because he had other matters to settle as well. It had only been 4 days since he had enrolled at the Silverwind Academy, and life had been a little bit difficult because of Morgana's bold action on the day that they had transferred. All the boys in the classroom had filed a petition for William to be kicked out from the class because they believed that he didn't belong there. The board members of the academy also didn't like the fact that the granddaughter of the emperor was being intimate with a foreigner that came from distant lands. In the end, the issue was brought to the emperor. The ruler of the Creator Empire, Emperor Leonidas, listened to the headmaster of Silverwind Academy and left the final decision in his hands. Due to pressure from the noble families, the headmaster reluctantly agreed to transfer William to Class F, where the most notorious students in the 3rd grade were gathered. This decision made the students, and the board members, very happy. To their surprise, Princess Sidonie accepted this outcome and even smiled at the headmaster, when he told her that the reason for William's transfer was due to the fact that he was a bad influence on the elite students in the 3rd-year division. However, it didn't end there. The pompous heirs also made sure that Ian stayed in Class A instead of following William in Class F. They didn't want William to have an easy life in the academy. William's ex-classmates thought that without his retainer to cater to his needs, William would become helpless and show his true colors. Ian didn't care about their pettiness, and was determined to follow William to Class F when the half-elf stopped him. Stay in Class A and watch over Sidonie for me. This was what William had told Ian while they had dinner with the princess. The half-elf didn't mind being transferred to another classroom. For him, this was even a blessing in disguise because he didn't want the noble families to always be at odds with him. It would also allow him to move freely, without extra pairs of eyes to watch his every move. Although Ian was reluctant to part with him, she still agreed to his request on the condition that William didn't cheat on them while he was in Class F. Finally, this looks like a dwelling fit for a human, William said after looking at his handiwork. Albert was someone that didn't like to clean. He would just do his everyday work, until the trash piled up in his room. When there came a time, when even he couldn't stand the mess that he created, he would then seduce the auntie, who was responsible for assigning maids to clean the dormitory rooms. He would whisper sweet words in her ears and take her in a night of passion, in order for her to send someone to clean his room once a month. William's fifth master, Albert, had a wide strike range. However, even though he had the ability to seduce any lady under the heavens, he still had his principles. He never targeted people who had lovers or were married. That was his bottom line, and even William felt that his master was a saint compared to those playboys that he had read about in web novels. After finishing his job, William went to his master's laboratory to practice his alchemy. Even though Albert was a skirt chaser, his skills were the real deal, and was still the most prestigious alchemist of the Creter Empire. It was William that had first approached him and asked if he was willing to teach him alchemy. To his surprise, the Full Kettle alchemist accepted him as his disciple. When William asked Albert why he agreed to his request, the latter only said that since William was a half-elf, and as good-looking as him, it was only natural to extend a hand. Also, he was planning to look for a disciple as well, so the timing had been perfect. One could even say that the two shameless half-elves, who always called themselves handsome, were a match made in heaven. After locking the room of the laboratory, William focused his attention on his alchemy. He checked the notes that Albert had left him and followed the instructions that were written on him to the letter. At the bestiary of the Silverwind Academy, a loud roar resounded in the shared bestiary of all the beasts that belonged to the third years. A golden dragon towered above the other beasts to show his dominance. This was what the beast handlers called the battle for the seat of kings. Every year, only one beast would stand above the rest and reign over the other beasts that belonged to the other students. The golden dragon was the third year's king and had been the leader of the other monsters ever since the classes started. Of course, the kings were not allowed to harm any monster in the bestiary. In return, he would be given the best accommodations, the best food, and the best services that the academy could provide. Gargantat, the golden dragon, had enjoyed all of these comforts and his reign was unchallenged until today. In front of him stood a rainbow-colored anteater who was eyeing him with genuine curiosity. Gargantat roared as it stood on its hind legs to show his dominance to the newcomer. The beast handlers watched this scene with amusement. Deep inside they pitied the anteater because of its ignorance. For them, the anteater was like a newly born calf who was unafraid of the tiger that intended to eat it whole. Gargantat slightly opened its mouth and golden flames flickered inside his mouth. It was clearly telling the anteater to scram before it was eaten for lunch. The anteater didn't budge and the golden dragon had finally reached the limits of its patience. It uttered a deafening roar. It was its way of issuing a challenge to the beast that dared to covet his throne. Finally, the anteater opened its mouth to reply to the dragon's challenge. Mother Fasterisker, let's take this outside. Kasaganaga raised its head arrogantly before it walked outside the bestiary. It had accepted the challenge of the golden dragon, and the latter followed behind the small anteater that it could easily crush like a pancake. Battles between beasts were allowed because only the strong could become the sovereign of the bestiary. As long as there were beast handlers present, these battles would be declared as official. Since every beast was an important asset, special considerations were placed in the battling arena. Similar to the Grand Colosseum in the Hellan Kingdom, the fighters would turn into particles of light if they died in battle. As soon as the two beasts faced each other, various roars, shrieks, and cheers erupted in the surroundings. The beasts and the handlers had been bored as of late, so seeing a stupid rainbow-colored anteater die under the claws of a golden dragon was still entertainment for them. Roar! Roar! I haven't eaten your kind before, but you look delicious. You better surrender now, while I'm still being merciful. Mother Fasterisker, stop talking and start fighting. Kasaganaga shouted with an adorable voice. Kasaganaga spent most of its time with the Ingrae birds, so it was very easy for it to pick up their habits. Its two companions, B1 and B2, taught the innocent anteater how to curse at its enemy, and the latter quickly ingrained this knowledge in its vocabulary arsenal. When William first heard Kasaganaga curse, the corner of the half-elf's lips twitched before hurling Stormacaller at the two dumb birds who had influenced the deity of the sky to hurl vulgarities when it fought. Ruhuhuor! Ignorant plebeian! It seems that you still don't understand your place. Very well, I will end your pitiful life. Die. Garganta swung at the anteater with its claws, but the anteater nimbly stepped to the side, evading the dragon's attack. The dragon sneered because it thought that it was just a fluke and used its other claw to rip the anteater into shreds. However, Kasaganaga moved effortlessly to the side to evade Garganta's attack. The handlers and the beasts continued to cheer because they thought that the golden dragon was merely playing with its prey. After evading his two attacks, Garganta finally realized that he was not fighting an ordinary anteater. It flapped its wings to fly as it opened its mouth to unleash a breath attack. The golden dragon decided to end the anteater with its most powerful move because its opponent was making it uneasy. Garganta is going for an overkill. One of the beast handlers shook his head because he could already foresee the ending of the duel. Well, this is to be expected for the king of the third division, the other beast handler commented. Very few beasts can survive a dragon's breath head-on. Garganta was a millennial dragon at its middle stages. To make a comparison, it was weaker than Elander's silver dragon that he had fought during their duel at the Gate of Beginnings. Even so, a millennial dragon was still a force to reckon with, and only powerful beasts and warriors could face it in a battle of life and death. Kasaganaga raised its head arrogantly as he looked at the dragon that was high up in the sky. It then rolled up its body and grew into a 2-meter wrecking ball with spikes covering its entire body. I'm rolling. Kasaganaga shot up towards the dragon breath to meet it head-on. If the golden dragon only knew what this small, rainbow-colored, anteater had fought during the era of the gods, as well as the war in the southern continent, it would immediately throw in the towel to surrender. Unfortunately, it didn't know. The dragon's breath dispersed, and the rainbow-colored, spiked, wrecking ball continued its trajectory, until it smashed into the golden dragon's open mouth. Garganta uttered a roar of pain as the spikes pierced the soft tissue inside its mouth. However, Kasaganaga was not done yet. Super, last, final, finishing, ending finale. I'm rolling. The deity of the sky's spinning force increased as it descended into the golden dragon's throat, shredding everything in its path. Garganta wasn't able to cry out in pain because the anteater had turned its insides into ground dragon meat. The king of the bestiary turned into particles of light as its life ended. That was the day when a new king reigned over the beasts of the third-year division, and he was given the nickname Rainbow-Colored, Rolling Calamity. Chapter 517, You are now in my home turf. Okay, introduce yourself. An old man with glasses made a gesture for William to step into the podium. Good morning everyone, William said with a smile. My name is William Vio. We already know who you are. A boy with freckles on his face cut William off before he could even finish his introduction. You are Princess Sidney's lover, right? Man, I'm so jealous of you. How far have you gone with the princess? Have you already done this and that? Can you teach us the way on how to be popular with the girls? Hey, is it true that the princess has a weird hobby? What food does she like to eat? William was immediately bombarded from all sides. The teacher who had asked him to introduce himself to his classmates was already dozing off in his chair. Clearly, the professor had no intention of teaching and planned on sleeping from the start. The corner of William's lips twitched as the questions rained on him non-stop. He had already expected that he would be thrown to the worst class, but from the looks of the facilities inside the room, it was not as bad as he thought it would be. To his surprise, Class A and Class F didn't have any differences when it came to the quality of the room. It seemed that the Silverwind Academy was an academy that didn't look down on its students. They just divide them based on their performance, which made William's impression of the academy rise by a good margin. A mischievous idea came to the half-elf's mind as he raised his hand to silence his classmates who seemed hell-bent to know some juicy gossip. I have heard all of your questions, and I'll answer them to the best of my abilities, William said with a smile that wouldn't lose to his grandpa, James, when the old coot was about to scam people. First you asked what my relationship is with Princess Sidney? The answer to this is that she is my lover. A low murmur erupted in the classroom as the third-year students talked to each other. William smiled as he continued with his plan to stir some trouble for the nobles that had sent him to the worst class among the third-year division. You ask me what the princess' favorite food is? The answer to this is simple. William flipped his hair and raised his chin arrogantly. What she likes to eat the most is me. Just make sure not to tell anyone, okay? William winked at his classmates as if they were trustworthy people that could keep a secret. The boys turned green with envy, while the girls blushed in embarrassment because they somewhat understood what William was hinting at. As for the secret on how to be popular with the ladies, the answer to this is very simple as well. The boys perked up their ears as they focused their attention on William. If he could tell them how to have a beautiful girlfriend, they would worship him to the high heavens. The girls, on the other hand, were also very curious on what William was going to say next. They wanted to know if the half-elf really knew what attracted the ladies to men. The secret on how to be popular is not really a secret, William said as he placed both of his hands to his hips. His chin was raised in arrogance like a young master looking down on his servants. What you need is confidence. Girls like confident men. Even if you are not born as handsome as me, if you know how to carry yourself, the girls will be attracted to you. The teenage boys glanced at the ladies in their class and saw them nodding to William's words. This made them realize that what the half-elf was saying is true. The atmosphere inside the room became more lively as William interacted with his new classmates. He learned their names one by one, and even joked with the ladies in the class that they shouldn't fall in love with him because he already had 4 lovers. Although polygamy was allowed in their world, the women of course preferred men who didn't have many lovers. This move made those who were interested in William back off regretfully. Why are all the good-looking men taken? A pretty girl sighed. They should leave some of the good men for me. I know, right? Half-elves are so dreamy. I want to have one as a lover, too. The girls started to whisper at each other. Soon, giggles resounded inside the room and the boys looked at the pretty ladies with disguised infatuation. A few hours later, William and the boys of his class went to the dining room together. The half-elf had already sent a message to Ash that he would be dining with his new classmates. The latter replied right away, and said that she would just have lunch with Princess Sidney. While William and his new classmates were talking, a group of teenage boys approached their table. The moment William's crew saw who was leading the group, they all stood up and bowed their heads in greeting. Good afternoon, Your Highness. Be at ease, Prince Jason replied. We are all students here, so there's no need for formality. The 5th prince of the Creator Empire smiled as he made a gesture for the boys to return to their chairs. He then shifted his attention to William. A tinge of killing intent flashed in his eyes for a brief moment before it disappeared without a trace. I'm sorry to hear that you've been ostracized by the students in Class A, Prince Jason said. As the president of the Student Council, I regret not being able to do anything to help you. William nodded his head in understanding. Do you really think of me as a fool? I bet you were the one who pulled the strings from behind. The half-elf didn't say this out loud because doing so would just complicate things. For him, as long as he was able to meet Aemon and lift the curse from his lovers, he didn't mind getting ostracized or insulted by anyone in the Creator Empire. From the start, he didn't intend to stay for a long time. He only promised that he would finish a school year to make the Emperor look at him favorably. Is there something you need from me, Your Highness? William asked. William knew that Prince Jason was infatuated with Princess Sidney. If he hadn't accepted the beautiful lady as his lover, then he wouldn't mind if the two of them became a couple. However, times had changed. He had no intention of giving away the princess whom he had already considered as one of his future wives. Yes, there is something I need to tell you, Prince Jason replied. I will be joining the Tournament of Heroes in 3 months' time. Not only that, I intend to be the champion. Oh, so you wanted the Emperor to grant you one of your daydreams? Daydreams? William nodded his head. Yes. Because whatever you plan to wish for, you will not have it. Oh? Just where is that confidence of yours coming from? Prince Jason smiled evilly. We are no longer in the southern continent. You are now in my home turf. William chuckled as he eyed the prince who was planning to ask the emperor to engage him with Princess Sidonie. It doesn't matter where I am, William declared with confidence. What mine is mine, and it will never be yours. We'll see about that. Look but don't touch, or else you might become a blind person. Prince Jason smirked before taking his subordinates to the VIP rooms that were reserved for the royal family. William watched him go with a neutral expression on his face. The moment he made Princess Sidonie his lover, he knew that there would be plenty of opposition. Unlike Wendy, Ash, and EST, Princess Sidonie was the princess of the Kingdom of Frisia and the granddaughter of the Emperor of the Creator Empire. Her status was quite high, so it was only natural for people to covet her beauty and the status that was attached to it. Wow, one of William's classmates muttered after the prince had left. You know Prince Jason? That's amazing. Yes, William replied. The two of us had met in the southern continent. To his surprise, it seemed that none of his classmates were aware about the war that had transpired in the southern continent. The major powers in the central continent had put a tight lid on the news about the Creator empires, and the elves' conquest of the southern lands. However, that didn't change the fact that William's name had been known to a lot of people from high places. Some of them even sent spies to watch his movements and see if they could bring him to their fold. Someone who was capable of standing up against the elves and their guardians was someone that any faction wanted to obtain. They would gladly give William riches, resources, and women, just to ensure that the half-elf would swear his loyalty to them. Emperor Leonidas knew this, and ignored several requests from the neighboring kingdoms and empires that wanted to see and meet with William. While he hadn't made his stance known to Princess Sidonie and her chosen lover, he didn't intend to allow others to have the half-elf either. The High Priestess of Aemon's temple had already given him an instruction on how to deal with the teenage troublemaker. He was also told of William's main reason for coming to the Creator Empire. Avexius had given him the recordings of the battle that had happened between William and the elves, and he had watched all of them in one sitting. This gave him a better understanding of William's character and already thought of a way on how to use it to his advantage. Although the skies above the Creator Empire were clear and very blue, a storm was brewing on the horizon. It was a storm that would test not only how strong William's resolve was, but also how strong his emotions were when it came to the people that mattered in his life. Chapter 518, Hunger That Knew No Bounds Part 1. After classes, William decided to roam the academy grounds. The Silverwind Academy was so big that it was a common occurrence for new students to get lost. Ian and Princess Sidonie had been spending a lot of time together and had been going out to shop very often. At least, that was the excuse that they always gave when William asked what they were up to. One time, he almost managed to pry the answers from Morgana's soft and sensuous lips after buttering her up with hugs, kisses, and a little bit of skinship. However, before the naughty girl could spill the beans, Princess Sidonie managed to take over and the conversation ended there. In the end, William had given up and decided to let his lovers do whatever they were planning behind his back. From the little information he got from Morgana, both girls were doing it for his sake. The Silverwind Academy was located in a mountainous region, not far from the capital city of the Creator Empire. If one wished, they could easily visit the capital if they were to use the teleportation gates within the academy grounds. At the base of the mountain was the city of Silverwind. It was the second largest city in the empire. Due to the fact that this was where the prestigious academy was located, many merchants had set up their stalls in this place because this was a good place to conduct trade and form connections with the noble families. William stared down at the city from on top of the mountain. He had only been there once since he arrived at the academy and had never gone back again. While he was pondering whether he should take the teleport gate to go to the city, he saw something in the corner of his eye. A girl, wearing a black dress, who seemed to be around the age of 10, walked towards the garbage dump of the academy. The garbage dump was a mile away from the academy, and the only people that went there were the staff that were assigned for waste disposal. Due to William's keen sight, he could tell that the girl was indeed headed in that direction. Is she perhaps lost? William frowned. I'd better check just in case. William jumped off from the peak of the mountain, and glided steadily towards the girl. The girl wearing a black dress was oblivious of William's approach as she continued to walk towards her destination. As the half-elf neared the girl, he noticed something peculiar about her. The way she walked was unsteady, as if she didn't have the strength to support her body. Also, she seemed to be panting. William landed in front of the girl, and the latter stopped to look at him. Cute, William thought as he stared at the little girl in front of him. According to William's estimate, the girl should at least be 8 feet in height, 144 centimeters. She had long, light pink hair that ended at her waist. Her eyes, which were the same color of her hair, looked back at William in surprise. However, this surprise didn't last long before it turned into anxiety. "Don't worry, I'm not a bad person," William said with a smile. "I noticed you walking towards the garbage dump, so I got worried that you might be lost. Are you perhaps lost?" "Don't worry, I'm not a bad person," William said with a smile. "I noticed you walking towards the garbage dump, so I got worried that you might be lost. Are you perhaps lost?" The little girl didn't answer, but William could tell that she was getting flustered. Suddenly her body started to sway, and the half-elf immediately reached out to support her body, before she collapsed on the ground. "Are you all right?" William asked in worry. "Don't worry. I will bring you to the infirmary of the academy right now." However, before William could execute his plan, the girl said something that made him freeze in his tracks. "I'm fine," the girl said as she panted for breath. "Please, just leave me alone. I need to go." "Where are you going?" "Over there." The little girl pointed at the place where the garbage dump was located. "Are you going to the garbage dump?" William inquired. The little girl hesitated before nodding her head. "Yes," the girl replied. "I need to go there. Please, let me go." William marveled on how light the little girl was. Although she wasn't as light as his cousin, Eve, the half-elf was sure that he could carry her easily even if he trained with weights attached to his body. "Okay. I will take you there." William compromised. "But, after that, I will bring you to the infirmary." The little girl looked straight into his eyes for a few seconds before nodding her head. William once again activated his flight ability and carried the girl towards the garbage dump. As he neared the site, the foul stench reached his nose. Usually, the trash would be burned every weekend. Unlike the cities on Earth, there are no plastic, cardboard boxes, or any other modern garbage in the world of Hestia. The garbage that had been thrown at the garbage pit consisted mostly of the food wastes that the Academy disposed of on a daily basis. Fruit peelings, egg shells, failed alchemy experiments like pills, animal bones, fish bones, and similar things were segregated in various pits that would soon be burned up by the staff of the Academy when weekend arrived. William landed near the pit and reluctantly lowered the girl to stand on her own feet. "Thank you," the little girl said before walking towards the place where fruit peelings were located. Suddenly the girl jumped on the pit, which caught William by surprise. The half-elf immediately rushed to check on her, but what he saw almost made him do a double take. After landing inside the pit, the girl casually grabbed a banana peel and raised it towards her mouth. She was about to eat it when a hand grabbed hold of her wrist, to prevent her from putting the rotting banana peel on her mouth. "Are you crazy?" William asked in confusion. "Why do you want to eat this?" "Because I am hungry," the girl replied. "Please, let me eat. I am hungry." "If you're hungry, let's go to the canteen, I'll buy you something to eat." "No. I can't go there. People will feel uncomfortable if I go there." William pried away the banana peel from the girl's hand and carried her in a princess carry. He then shot up from the pit and flew towards the direction of the academy. "Stop! Don't take me to the academy!" the little girl struggled in William's arms. "Behave yourself," William said. "Don't worry, I will buy you food to eat. You don't have to eat those things." "No, you don't understand," the girl pleaded. "Please, just leave me alone." The girl was struggling so much that William wobbled in his flight. In the end, he was forced to land on the ground to ensure the little girl's safety. "Are you a student of the academy?" William asked. Although the possibility was small, the possibility still existed. Aside from being a student, the little girl could also be a daughter of one of the professors, or the staff that was working on the academy. The pink-haired girl hesitated once again before nodding her head. "Yes, I am a student." "Then why don't you eat at the canteen like all the other students do?" "I can't," the girl answered. "Anyone who sees me will feel disgusted that they will lose their appetite." William frowned when he heard the little girl's answer. He had just arrived at the academy, and a quarter of the year had already gone by. It meant that he was not aware of certain things that had transpired during that period of time, including the reason why this little girl would go to the garbage dump just to have something to eat. While William was pondering, he heard a rumbling sound, and the little girl who stood in front of him placed both of her hands over her stomach. The rumbling sound grew stronger, and the girl seemed about to faint any second due to hunger. "For now, eat this," William said as he created a chocolate lollipop. "This lollipop can last for 3 days. Just make sure that you don't chew on it." William unwrapped the lollipop and presented it to the little girl who was looking at it in a daze. "Here. Hold it." William placed the lollipop on the girl's hand, and the latter held it firmly, like it was her last lifeline. The little girl looked at the lollipop for a few seconds before putting it inside her mouth. Immediately her expression changed as the sweetness of the chocolate spread across her taste buds. "Is it good?" William asked. The little girl didn't answer. Instead, she bit on the lollipop and started chewing. William sighed as he produced another lollipop for the little girl. He explicitly told the girl to not chew it, but the latter was too hungry to understand his words. To his surprise, not only did the girl eat the lollipop, she also ate the lollipop stick like a pretzel. William was about to reach out and pry her mouth open to retrieve the lollipop stick when the system's voice reached his ears. "Host. Don't worry. According to my analysis, she will just be fine. Please, use your appraisal skill and look at her information." William was doubtful at first, but he still did what the system had told him. Moments later, his jaw dropped after he read the information of the little girl, whom he just fed his lollipop a while ago. Name, Chiffon Val Gremery. Age, 18. Race, Naritsa, half-dwarf, half-demon. Title, Glutton from Hell. One of the 7 deadly sins that represents the sin of gluttony. Chapter 519, Hunger That Knew No Bounds Part 2. Big brother, do you still have more? Chiffon, the adorable girl, looked up at William in expectation. She had already seen the lollipop in William's hand, but still pretended not to see it. William stiffly handed the lollipop at her and the girl happily tore the wrapper off, revealing the chocolate candy that made her eyes sparkle. Chiffon unceremoniously ate the wrapper first, before she placed the candy inside her mouth. This time, she didn't chew it and just licked it, like William had told her to do. For some reason, after eating the chocolate lollipop earlier, the hunger she felt disappeared completely. This was the first time that Chiffon experienced something like that. Usually, even after she ate 3 tons of garbage, the hunger would return after a few hours. She was very shocked when a single lollipop managed to stop her hunger pains as if it was done by magic. William stared at the cute girl who seemed to have reached enlightenment. After hesitating for 2 minutes, he finally decided to introduce himself to her. "My name is William von Ainsworth," William said. "Feel free to call me, Will. How about you?" What's your name? Although he already knew the answer, he still asked the question because he felt that it would be rude to call out people's names without proper introduction. The loli took out the lollipop from her adorable lips as she made a curtsy and introduced herself. Chiffon Val Gremery, Chiffon replied. Big brother, just call me Chiffon. I'm 17 years old. I will have my birthday in a month. Is it really fine to call me Big brother? It's fine, Big brother. I am only 12 years old. You are clearly older than me. The corner of William's lips twitched because the little loli dared to lie to him. If he didn't have the system, he would readily accept her explanation without any doubt, because she did look like a 12-year-old due to her height and lovable appearance. Am I fated to always stumble upon this kind of situation? William thought as he sighed internally. My gut feeling is telling me that I'm going to be involved in something problematic. Chiffon watched William with genuine interest. She had an extra strong perception towards magic, and she was sure that William didn't take out the lollipop from his storage ring. Since that was the case, Chiffon came to a realization. William could produce the lollipop using his ability. The pink-haired girl didn't know what kind of ability it was, but one thing was for certain. William was someone that could solve her hunger problems. Big brother, is there something wrong? Chiffon inquired as she walked up to him in a cute manner. She then took hold of William's hand and held it firmly. I need to know more about this person. William was at a loss on what to do. He didn't regret giving Chiffon his lollipop, but her very existence was a flag that he didn't want to take part of. If this was a route for a game, William would steer clear off her route and look for other heroines to conquer. Nothing good came out of dealing with one of the 7 deadly sins. He already experienced the threat that Princess Sidonie and Morgana possessed, so how could he possibly underestimate someone who bore the title of one of the greatest sins of the world? William cleared out his throat as he decided to make an excuse in order to leave Chiffon behind. Chiffon, I still have things to do, William said as he looked at the small hand that firmly held his own hand. I need to go to Silverwind City to buy a few things. Is that so? Chiffon asked. Don't worry, big brother. I came to the academy 3 months ago. Although I'm not very familiar with the city, I had visited it thrice during my stay here. You don't say. Chiffon tilted her head cutely, which made William's heart shudder. Looking at Chiffon made him remember his cousin Eve, and Brianna whom he had considered as his own little sister. Big brother, do you have any more of these lollipops? Chiffon asked. I like them very much. Chiffon looked up at William and stared at him intently. The innocent pair of eyes was too much for him to bear, so he averted his gaze to calm his heart. After thinking things through, William relented. He produced 10, red, blue, and chocolate lollipops and handed them to Chiffon. He then carefully explained their uses. As I told you before, the chocolate lollipop can last for 3 days as long as you don't chew it, William explained. This red lollipop has the ability to cure minor wounds. If you get injured, eat one of them. This blue lollipop replenishes magic power. If you feel drained from using magic spells, take one as well. Remember that the red and blue lollipop can be only eaten once, and will not last as long as the chocolate lollipop. If you are feeling hungry, just place the chocolate lollipop in your mouth and lick it. Chiffon held the lollipops as if they were priceless treasures. She then carefully placed it inside her storage ring before looking at William with a grateful expression. Big brother, thank you for the lollipops, Chiffon said. Where did you buy them? If possible, I want to buy them in bulk. These lollipops can't be bought anywhere. These are all handmade. Did you make them, big brother? Yes. William wanted to say no, but the puppy eyes that were looking up at him, made the lie that he was about to say become stuck in his throat. You are amazing, big brother. Chiffon praised. Maybe you should open a candy shop. I promise that I will be your #1 customer. I'll think about it, William replied. Chiffon nodded her head like an obedient child. She then pulled William's hand as she walked towards the academy. Big brother, let's go, Chiffon urged. We need to get back before 6 in the evening. If we dilly-dally, we won't be able to stroll around the city for a long time. William shook his head as he allowed the girl, whom he had just met, drag him back to the academy. Although he didn't regret giving Chiffon his lollipops, he was feeling troubled because of the consequences of his actions. Inside Silverwind Academy. Your Majesty, I have something to report. Gilbert Geiss, the headmaster of Silverwind Academy, as well as Professor Rita's father, said as he looked at the mirror inside his office. A/N, in case you had forgotten, Professor Rita is the professor in charge of Class A. Gilbert? Did something happen? Emperor Leonidas stared at the headmaster with a calm expression on his face. Chiffon came in contact with William, Gilbert replied. Should I intervene? An expression of surprise appeared on Emperor Leonidas' face when he heard the headmaster's report. However, this surprise didn't last long before it became serious. How did it happen? Emperor Leonidas inquired. Chiffon was a special existence within the academy and there were people that monitored her from the shadows. When Gilbert had been informed about the current development, he immediately sought the emperor's opinion on how to deal with the current events. After listening to Gilbert's narration on how the two met, Emperor Leonidas rubbed his chin in contemplation. Are they getting along? The emperor asked. Gilbert nodded. I just checked and I saw Chiffon dragging William back to the academy. Also, she seemed to be happy. Although she wasn't smiling, I could vaguely feel her mood from afar. How should I proceed, Your Majesty? A minute of silence enveloped the room as the headmaster of Silverwind Academy waited for the Emperor's orders. Finally, after the wait that almost felt like years, Emperor Leonidas finally made up his mind. Gilbert. Your Majesty. Don't do anything, Emperor Leonidas ordered. However, continue to constantly monitor Chiffon. You already know who she is, and what her affiliation is. I don't want that bastard to say that I was not looking after the daughter that he had tossed away. Gilbert nodded respectfully. As you wish, Your Majesty. Emperor Leonidas was about to cut off the connection, but stopped midway and asked a question. Did she really look happy? Yes. I even have a recording. Do you want to see it, Your Majesty? Show it to me, Emperor Leonidas ordered. The headmaster showed a projection where Chiffon could be seen dragging William's hand. The half-elf had a resigned look on his face, while the little girl was wearing an expression of calm. When the recording stopped, the Emperor of the Creator Empire also ended the conversation. Inside his study room, the sovereign of the empire leaned his back on his chair. The image of Chiffon dragging his granddaughter's fiancé back to the academy was still fresh in his mind. Evexius was right, Emperor Leonidas snorted. That half-elf is a penchant for trouble. Chapter 520, You Are Too Defenseless. As soon as William and Chiffon entered the academy gates, several stares landed on the two of them. Chiffon seemed to be used to this treatment already, so she ignored them and continued dragging William behind her. William, also didn't mind being talked about by the students in the academy. He didn't intend to stay there for long, so he wasn't bothered by any of the gossip that was to spread while he was enrolled there. However, even though he didn't care about what others said, that didn't mean that his sensitive hearing wasn't able to pick up what the students were saying as they walked past them. Did you see that? It's that disgusting trash eater. Ew. I bet 1,000 gold coins that she went to the garbage dump again. Isn't that Princess Sidney's lover? What is he doing with that freak? You know what they say, birds of the same feather, flock together. Ha ha ha. Does he also eat trash? Who knows? Maybe they shared some fish bones or eggshells between them. Gross. William still had a calm expression on his face, but he was feeling irritated by the insults that were being said behind Chiffon's back. Now that he knew the sin that she carried, he could somewhat understand why she would visit the garbage dump to look for something to eat. Did she perhaps get banned from the canteen because she ate a lot? This was the thought that passed through William's mind as he allowed himself to be dragged by the little girl who seemed to have increased her pace after entering the academy. "Chiffon, where are we going?" William asked. The little girl abruptly stopped and turned her head to look at William. "Big brother, where are you currently staying?" Chiffon asked back. "The third-year male dormitory." "Okay." Chiffon once again dragged William. This time, she headed towards the Aberdeen dormitory where the third-year boys stayed. After entering the boys' dormitory, Chiffon paced the halls unhurriedly. She was looking around like a country bumpkin and taking in the sights that she was seeing for the first time. Chiffon was a well-known celebrity inside the academy, but not of a good kind. She was given the nickname, Trash Eater, because she was often seen at the garbage dump picking up trash to eat during lunch and dinner. At first, the boys tried to approach Chiffon because she was very cute. However, after finding out her daily routine, all of them backed away in disgust. None of the girls wanted to have any connection with Chiffon either, because, for them, she was the embodiment of filth. They didn't even want to be in the same room with her, so Chiffon stopped coming to classes and only wandered around the academy grounds, while the classes were ongoing because it was empty. She was surprised when William talked to her because she thought that no one in the academy would dare to get near her. Right now, Chiffon treated William as her first friend in the academy, so she wanted to know more about him. "Aren't you a little too bold?" William asked after closing the door of his room. "You came here to the boys' dormitory and even came inside my room. Aren't you afraid that I might do something to you?" "Do something? Like what, big brother?" Chiffon asked back as she sat on the only couch in the room. William rubbed his temple as he sat on top of his bed. He didn't know if Chiffon was really ignorant or she was only messing around with him. If one were to look at the Chiffon, they would come to the conclusion that she was only an 11 or 12-year-old human child. However, since William had the system, the pink-haired girl wouldn't be able to hide her age even if she kept mum for the rest of her life. The other thing that bothered Williams was Chiffon's race. Naritsa. Half-dwarf, half-demon. Naritsa was a general term used for hybrid races that had a demonic origin. Although there were other specific names for such unions, this term was the most commonly used in the world of Hestia. William was a half-elf, and his parents were a human and a high elf. Although he was very tempted to ask Chiffon about her parents, William was hesitant to do that. He hadn't had the chance to see a dwarf, but he had already seen demons, in the form of Sha and Zhu. According to the system, dwarves were only 4 to 5 feet tall with broad and stout bodies. Chiffon's body was slender and delicate just like a human girl. This made William believe that her body's constitution was taken from her demon parent, while her height was taken from her dwarf parent. "So this is what you call a legal loli," William mused as he looked at the girl who was busy licking his lollipop. "A/N, boys, behave yourselves." Chiffon felt William's stare and thought that the latter wanted her to come close. The pink-haired girl stood up from the couch and walked towards William's bed. Out of curiosity, she pressed the mattress of the bed to see how soft it was. "Big brother, your bed is very comfortable, can I lay down on it?" Chiffon asked. Aren't all beds in every dormitory the same?" William replied with a question of his own. Chiffon became silent for a while. It seemed that she was hesitating whether to answer William's question or not. "Big brother, I don't sleep in the girls' dormitory," Chiffon answered after a few minutes passed. William raised an eyebrow as he pressed the little girl for answers. After a short interrogation, the half-elf finally got the answers to his question, and he didn't like them one bit. According to Chiffon, the academy didn't assign her any room and only delegated the stables as her resting area. William was appalled when he found out that the little girl was left to fend off for herself, without anyone to take care of her. He didn't say anything earlier, but he had noticed that Chiffon's uniform was quite dirty, even before she went to the garbage dump. Now that he knew that the girl was being mistreated by the academy, William found himself clenching his fist in irritation. One of William's weaknesses were little children. They reminded him of the little brothers and sisters that he had cared for in the orphanage. This was why he was overprotective of Eve and Brianna and ensured that the two of them were safe from harm. Although Chiffon was 18 years old, her appearance was that of a child. Even if he didn't want to admit it, he felt sorry for her and wanted to do something for her sake. It was at that moment when William heard the soft breathing of a sleeper. Chiffon had fallen asleep on his bed, with a peaceful expression on her face. "You are too defenseless," William thought as he shook his head. He then took off her shoes and helped her have a more comfortable sleeping position. Suddenly, the door of the room opened and two people entered without knocking on the door. "Will, what are you doing?" Ash asked in a tone filled with disbelief. "Will, how could you?" Princess Sidonie covered her lips with a hand. Just like Ash, she couldn't believe the scene that she was seeing with her own eyes. William turned his head to look at his lovers. "Oh. Welcome back. Just a minute, I'm about to finish." The half-elf was currently holding onto Chiffon's sleeping body, in an angle that could cause plenty of misunderstandings. Ash closed the door and locked it in place. Princess Sidonie narrowed her eyes, and approached the bed with the intention of educating William about laying his hands on minors. When she was only a few meters away from the bed, Chiffon sleepily reached out to William and held on to his arm. "Big brother, it was good," Chiffon said sleepily. "I want more." After saying those misleading words, the pink-haired lowly once again returned to her slumber. Ash and Princess Sidonie looked at the girl's dirty and crumpled uniform, before looking back at William, who was right on top of the sleeping girl. "Will, we need to talk," Ash said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Princess Sidonie was also smiling, but her eyes had already turned golden. Clearly, the two had misinterpreted the girl's words, and William's current position. The half-elf looked at the sleeping girl under him, before shifting his attention to his two lovers, who were looking at him with murder in their eyes. He knew that if he didn't explain things properly, someone was going to sleep on the floor tonight.